Look how we have it all together. Look how sharp we are. Look how astute. Look how prayerful. Look how quick to respond. But the Gospels don't show anything like that. The followers of Jesus in the Gospel are obtuse, dense, slow to believe. Jesus just called Peter Satan. This is not a really effective way to get people to join a club. Come follow a club led by a man who was called Satan. I work downtown in a temple in Detroit. It's not an effective way for people to get people to join the church. So it's not propaganda. So again, without trying to trivialize the importance of the witness, that objection is a very real objection, but it's a dodge oftentimes for people. It's a sidetracking issue. It's not the question. What's the question? The question is simply this: did it happen or not? Did God intervene in history or didn't he? Is it true? Because Christianity isn't first and foremost some sort of doctrine, nor is it a way of life. Christianity is the claim of a fact that a man walked amongst other men and women and made this audacious claim: I am God. The question is he or isn't he? Forget about his followers, at least for now. In Jesus' words, the question is simply this, and it's a question that poses to me, to each of them, to you, to all of us, very personally, very directly. The question is, who do you say I am? And there are only three logical answers, or possible answers. Why? Because Jesus clearly is claiming to be God. That's why that happened to him. We have in our culture today the image that Jesus was just some sort of like really nice guy. Did some cool things. Tried to get everybody to love each other. As someone once said, to those of us who are old enough to remember the TV show back in the 60s and the 70s, who in the world would crucify Captain Kangaroo? Nobody. For those of you who don't know what Captain Kangaroo is, ask your parents or your grandparents. I'll tell Father Brian later. The people who did this because he claimed to be God. So he either is or he's not. So imagine if I was to stand in front of you today and say some of the things that Jesus said. How about this for a start? If you would come after me, you must deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. If you want to be part of our Lady Counsel, that's the membership requirement. I need you to deny yourself, sign over the ownership to me. Okay? Pick up a cross. It's not a little balls of wood thing. It's actually a real cross. And follow me. Hopefully you might sit there going, he looks a little proud. Or what if I was to stand up here and say, I have news for you. I just want to tell you this is very important. My flesh, it's real food. And my blood, it's real drink. And unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no life in you. You still stand? Or how about this? When you look at me, you see God. Yeah, I know it's kind of hard to believe me, but yeah, really, I'm God. When you see me, you see the creator of everything that is. Or, he who believes in me, even though he died, will live again. If you believe in me. Or I am the way, not the way, the truth, and the life. I am. Everyone who came before me is a thief and a robber. I am the good shepherd. And I have come so that you might have abundant life. Jesus said all these things, time an atheist who then goes on to become perhaps the most widely read Christian author of the 20th century, famously answered the question this way. He says, you've got three options. You can call Jesus Lord, you can call him a liar, or you can call him a lunatic. He cannot be a nice guy, he cannot be a good man, and he cannot be a prophet. Nice guys don't say things like what I just said. Good men don't say things like I just said. Prophets don't say things like that. Fruitcakes say things like that. Megalomaniacs say things like that. Wicked people say things like that. Or God says things like that. Who do you say I am? Of course, everything stands and falls with Christianity, with whether or not that is the end of the story. So everything stands and falls, quite frankly, with whether or not this thing that we call the resurrection actually took place. The question is, do I have reasons not to believe, to think that a man who was nailed to a cross is risen from the dead? I've been ordained a priest almost 20 years. I've done I don't know how many hundreds of funerals. I've never seen one of them after I buried them. I had a friend of mine when I was in the seminary who was from Bosnia. I was in the seminary in the early 90s. He went home to his homeland in the early 90s. If you might remember, if you're old enough back then, it was a time of great conflict in Bosnia. When he got home over Christmas vacation, he got abducted by Muslim extremists who posed to him this option: renounce your faith in Jesus or die like him. He got nailed to the floor of his house. He didn't come back for class. Imagine me walking up to his mom some months later saying, Mrs. Schlotnick, I just want to let you know that I had breakfast with your son, who was crucified. I think she would have been terribly offended. And yet the Christian claim is just that. He who was dead on the cross is alive. We don't have time right now to go into all the reasons that we have to think, not just believe, to think that he's risen. Well, let's maybe just provocatively say this. Historically speaking, the only necessary and sufficient explanation for the rise and the growth of Christianity are these two things. On Easter Sunday morning, that real historical day in Jerusalem, the tomb into which that man who was crucified was placed was empty. That's the first. Second, his resurrected body was seen that day and many days after by people, especially including people who did not follow him, did not like him, did not believe in him, most especially a man named Paul. No other explanations make sense for the growth and the rise of Christianity. Many of us, when we were in college, we were taught in one way or another the expression that goes simply like this: history is written by the winners. That's true in lots of cases. It's not true with regards to Christianity. For the first 250 years of Christianity, more or less, it was illegal to be a Christian. And while it wasn't the case that Christians were getting persecuted all throughout those 250 years, it certainly was the case that at many times during those years you could be killed on sight simply for being Christian. That was a law on the books. I have no right to exist, according to the Roman law, back in the 2nd, 3rd, and the beginning of the 4th century. And yet, Christianity grew. If this is true, then what's the payoff? Well, I think simply this: answers. Answers to life's most important questions, like why am I here? is the meaning of life? Why is the world so broken? What went wrong? And is there any reason to hope? And we here at Our Lady of the Counsel unapologetically and unabashedly think that the answer to that last question is the reason to hope is an emphatic yes with a lot of exclamation points right underneath it or right behind it. And the yes is because not of a doctrine, not because of a code, not because of a lifestyle, but because of a person who is alive, who wants to be met, who wants to be encountered, who wants to break into our lives, who wants to help us find the peace, the happiness, the joy, the life that we all crave. He wants to be the answer to the what is the more that I'm looking for. If you are here, if any of us are here, hopefully, presumably, we're here because I'm hungry. I want something. I'm looking. I don't know what I'm looking for, quite frankly. I just know I'm looking. I want more. It'd be great if the Lions win today. It'd be great if the Lions win the Super Bowl. It'd be great if Harbaugh actually restores Michigan to some credibility. But that won't do it for me. I want more than that. I want abundant life. What is that? I don't know. I just know this isn't it. And he claims he has it. And the more I come to know him, and to hear him, and to follow him, and to experience him, whether it's his mercy, or his truth, or his challenge, or his comfort, the more I find happiness. Because he's real. Which leads to the invitation. You see kind of scattered throughout the crowd here today, these people with these red shirts. I might just ask some of them to stand. I see some of them. So they've got red shirts with little question marks. That's not because they're clueless. That's because they're here to kind of represent a course that we offer. You can sit, sorry. A course that we offer here periodically throughout the year in Our Lady of the Counsel called the Alpha Course. We've had some 2,200 people go through the Alpha Course in the last 2 years. And while it's not true for everybody, it's true for an overwhelming number of people who've gone through there, that they say this afterwards. I have had, as a result of going through this, a life-changing encounter with the person of Jesus. I once walked this way, and now I'm walking this way. I once lived as if I couldn't quite see what things were about. Now I'm living with corrected vision. I once lived in a state of confusion without a lot of hope, riddled with despair, depressed, wondering what in the world is going on. I don't live that way anymore. And I don't live that way anymore not because I've learned something. I don't live that way anymore because I've met someone who, even more than I want you to meet him, he wants to be met. Because he's that good. He is love. And love moves. It acts. It breaks into people's lives. And it starts with people who are most in need. So those of us who are here, for whatever reason we find ourselves having been away from the church for a long time, to know this, he wants to run to you. And the question that he's going to ask isn't, what have you done? The question he wants to ask is, do you see what I've done? Do you see how much I care? So if you're interested in joining him, we're going to have an opportunity for people after Mass to sign up. There's a table out there at the main entrance to the church. Here's basically what Alpha is. It's an opportunity for us to buy you a meal for 11 weeks in a row. We want to feed you. So we want to bring you either to lunch or to dinner. I go to the dinner, it's a bigger meal, but that's just me. So lunch or dinner. And then what we do is we just show a video afterwards, which is a really profound talk, which basically is all those questions that all the world wants to ask, but never really seems to do. The meaningful questions. Like, is there a God? Is Christianity relevant? Why did Jesus die? How do I pray?